African American cultural experience is one that can't be bound by national boundaries. Populations and ideas have moved across these boundaries, and those ideas change in different milieus and different contexts. And so to make more accurate the ways in which we understand African American expressive culture and African American experiences, then we have to take into account the ways in which blacks from across the hemisphere have been writing about their own experiences. People of African descent in the Americas use the printed word and print culture more generally to ameliorate material, social, and political conditions. My work on the Harlem Renaissance is one example. New Negro writers, that is, writers from essentially the turn of the 20th century through the beginning of the Second World War, use, again, print culture as a means of representing African Americans in a more complex manner. African Americans saw themselves as fully participating in this modernist or modern moment through the very folk idioms and folk expressions like the blues and through vernacular speech that previously had been understood as the sign of that which is anti-modern. I began reading a number of histories of Cuba and of Afro-Cubans, particularly at the beginning of the 20th century. And from there, got very much interested in Afro-Latino literature and culture more broadly. The larger project is to try to organize a group of translators to translate Afro-Latino writers from across the Americas. My hope is that we can begin to theorize about what black writing is and why it's important, not simply in a U.S.-specific context, but indeed at a hemispheric level, to look across the hemisphere and to see, okay, what are some of the similarities, what are some of the characteristics that we can identify in a Brazilian text that also recurs in a Costa Rican text or in a Dominican text and in a North American text. More and more graduate students are working in this transatlantic vein, and one that necessarily demands a multicultural and a multilingual approach to expressive culture. Notre Dame has an awareness and a presence across the Americas that comes largely out of its Catholic mission. Having institutions like the Institute for Latino Studies, Romance Languages, the Kellogg Institute, as well as colleagues across the College of Arts and Letters, all make for an intellectual climate that is going to be very supportive of this kind of work.